This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. I am here with the awesome and amazing Rob Tyson, robtyson.net, the man himself. Welcome to The Speaking Show.
It's great to be here, David. Thank you.
So, I always think that our guests who are from the UK and have that fantastic accent are at least 25% smarter than my American guests. Would you agree with that?
I could not possibly say that, David. I think most of your listeners would object. I don't know if it's true, actually, either. So I'm going to be diplomatic on that.
Okay. Well, it's funny because here in the US, let's share a quick funny story with you. We have several members of our team who are from the UK, and one is in the UK and one is actually in Costa Rica. And I said, in America, when we want to make somebody sound dumb, we give them a Southern accent, like a hillbilly kind of like, okay, yeah, sure thing, boy. Uh-huh. All right, so that. And I say, there must be an English equivalent. And they say, oh, yeah. Oh, there is. Birmingham.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't have thought of that one. But yeah, I suppose that, people might use that one. Yeah.
And again, it's a terrible slander against anyone from the southern part of the U.S. and a terrible slander against people from Birmingham. But that's kind of like the default,
Yeah.
It's one of those things. So I'm sure every culture has their, what does that dumb person voice sound like? And I just wanted to ask, check on the British side of that. And now we know. Let's get to some actual value that people might want to listen to. You have an awesome, incredible process and framework for creating offers that are irresistible and that people want to buy, and it's called Outpitch. Let's start talking about the beginnings of that and how sort of that came to be, and then we'll walk people through the model.
Absolutely. So just for a bit of background for people who don't know me, I work with experts in marketing and sales and business growth. And usually what we're doing is creating hands-off online training businesses with them. So a lot of this is to do with developing coaching packages, online products, consulting packages, that type of thing. And I got started with my own business back in 2010, and probably like most people it seemed like every mistake in the book, some of which I still make. But one of the big light bulb moments for me really was at that time, I developed this training product, and I had done a lot of work with Google Ads, or AdWords as it was at the time. And I developed this thing, and I built this audience, this list of 1,000 people. And I developed this training manual, and I priced it at, I think it was 47 quid. So it's a similar amount in dollars. And I got really excited about launching this thing. I had 1,000 people on my email list. And you can guess, David, what happened when I launched this product. You can hazard a guess, I bet.
Was it crickets? Not much response, not much activity?
It was almost crickets. So I spent about 2 months developing this thing and actually sold, drum roll please, 2 copies. So this at the time was pretty crushing. And all these things go through your mind. So, one of the things you think is, maybe the people on my list are just not good people. They're broke or they're just not the right people. But I got back on the bike, and quite soon after that, I actually ran a one-day event, a seminar on online marketing. And I invited the same people along. So the same people on my list, and 10 of these people came along. The difference this time was I remember sitting down in my desk and actually thinking really hard about, look, what am I going to offer these people? And how can I make it really valuable? And I didn't realize at the time, but I was pulling in these things that became part of this Outpitch Formula that we're going to get into in a sec. Big difference. One of the people at that event, I actually sold a package. It was 1,500 quid a month, and it was a 12-month deal. So that was an £18,000 package. And they ended up working with me for 5 years. So I got paid every month for 5 years. And actually the fee went up. So it ended up, when I look back, I ended up earning about £100,000 from that sale. And the reason I tell that story is because, as I said, when I tried to sell them this thing, the product, the manual, no one wanted to buy it. But one of the people did buy this 18,000 package. And what it showed me was that actually it's not a money thing most of the time. It's an offer thing. Is the thing that you're offering people exciting? Does it tick the boxes for them? Does it allay their concerns? And I think that one of the biggest mistakes speakers and other independent business people are making is they're just not aware of this skill of offer creation. And I think every speaker is making offers all the time, whether they realize it or not. But the thing is, most of the time, because they're unaware of this, their offers will be quite weak. And I would think that the average speaker is probably a 1 or a 2 out of 10 at offer creation. So that's not a criticism, but it's just to put the idea in people's mind that actually there is this gap that's costing them a lot of money. And if they can get a bit better at offer creation, if they could get up to a 5 out of 10, actually, this is one of those things that's not going to take them a huge amount of time. It's not expensive because it's a thinking task, really, but it can make a very big difference to them in a short space of time. And so that's why I'm excited about this idea. And that's why when I work with clients, we spend quite a lot of time using this framework and just kind of, looking really hard at the offer, trying to figure out, how can we make this stronger?
Yeah, no, I love this. And this reminds me, one of my good friends is Jose Palomino, who wrote the book Value Prop, and his website is valueprop.com. And he says that you want to work really hard on a value proposition / offer. I mean, those words are almost interchangeable in this context.
Yeah.
You want to work on an offer that is bought and that does not need to be sold. So as soon as people see it, they point to the screen, they go, I want that. Or they point to a colleague, let's say they're selling this to a company, they point to a colleague and say, come over here, you need to look at this. We need this guy. We need this program. This is exactly what we're looking for. Those kinds of programs, those kinds of offers are the ones that are bought by customers. They don't need to be sold or pitched, or we don't need to strive so hard to cram these things down people's throats. So please continue. Let's walk through the rest of your thinking on this.
I love that. And you touched on another interesting point there, which is just around the terminology, because a lot of people, when they hear the word offer, they immediately think, oh, special offer. This means like, oh, well, if I offer 20% off, this is how I succeed. Actually, offer in this context has a different meaning. So the offer, what we're really talking about with the offer is it's everything your client gets and everything they have to give in order to get it. So I'll repeat that. It's everything they get and everything they have to give in order to get it. So that's what we're talking about, the offer. So the Outpitch formula that I arrived at, and this is an acronym, and I called it Outpitch because when you start to use this thinking, you will find that you naturally outpitch your competitors because you have better offers. So the O in Outpitch stands for options. So this is the first thing, options. So what purchase options will you make available? Because if you only have one option, you're probably missing a trick. This actually, I happened to hear you talking about this, David, a while back. You happen to mention, one of the reasons people buy is to express their own self-image. And what that means for us is that there is always a segment of the market who wants the very best thing. And so if you're only offering one thing, you are missing out entirely on that top segment of the market. Maybe it's 10%, could be as high as 20%, who want the best thing. They want to fly first class. They want the concierge service. They want the VIP tickets. And this doesn't mean that you're just coming up with a package where you kind of give them any old crap and stick a high price point on it. What it does mean is that you think very hard about, well, actually, there's this top level of clients. They would like more attention or faster service or whatever it is. And how can we actually cater to them? And so if you can offer that premium version alongside your standard version, that is a really good idea. So that's probably the first thing to think about, the options. Conversely, you may also have a stripped down version that is for the lower end of the market. And that can be an interesting thing to think about as well. But the point to impress upon you here is just how many options do you have for people? Have you given that enough consideration?
And Rob, am I hearing you right that just based on having the regular version, the super deluxe version, and the stripped down version, you're recommending 3?
Yeah, possibly, although you don't always need to offer them at the same time. So it could be that you just go out into the market with the standard and the premium, and then you kind of have the lower version as a fallback, which you can maybe offer to people later on who didn't come on board. But certainly, yeah, going out into the market with 2 or 3 options is generally a pretty good idea. Something you should experiment with at any rate.
Really, really great advice. Hey, good looking. Are you currently getting paid to speak? Would you like to ramp that up? We can help. Book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team at doitmarketing.com/call, and let's see what we might do together. The call is free, but the results may be priceless. The way that I've heard this is if you just have one option, people are thinking, do I buy it or not? Is it yes or no, right? Mm-hmm. It's a whether, right? Whether I buy it or not. When you have multiple options, the brain automatically goes to which one do I want? Like not buying now is like way back here. They don't even think about not buying. It's like, ooh, option 1, option 2, option 3. Which one should I get? So it moves the buyer's mind from whether to which. And you want them thinking about which one, not whether I want this or not.
Well, it's interesting, and I agree completely. And to come back to the client I mentioned earlier who bought my package at the event, I remember talking to him and his business partner. They were looking at it, and I did present those 3 options at the event, and they kind of conferred and said, well, which one should we have? And the one gentleman just went, I'm a middle of the road kind of guy. So he literally self-selected the middle package on the basis that, I'm a middle of the road kind of guy. This is the kind of thing I go for. But, there are people at all points on that spectrum. So having different options is a really good thing to think about doing.
Yeah, really, really important. I think any good offer is going to have options. That's brilliant.
Cool. Good. So moving on then. So the next one, David, urgency. When people don't buy, we can often think, oh, well, they must hate us. Our message must have been wrong. Our product must be rubbish. We're idiots. And we can have this kind of crisis of confidence. And sometimes that might be accurate, but often people can like the message. They can actually like the product, and they can certainly like you and still not buy. And that happens simply because they don't see the urgency. Why should I do this right now? Because inertia is an incredibly powerful force. And I think all of us, until we get hip to it, really underestimate the scale of the task required to move a prospect to action. We really underestimate what it takes to get people to open their wallet. And that often we can experience this, particularly if we're used to selling to our own network of people. What we can find is it's relatively easy to sell to them. But then when we go out into the wider world, things kind of fall off a bit of a cliff. And this is one of the reasons when you're designing your offer, you really need a good answer to that question. Okay, this sounds good, but why should I do this now instead of later? So when you start to think about that, the question then is, well, what mechanisms do I have at my disposal that I can use to create a strong impetus for potential clients to act now instead of deferring the decision? So I would suggest to you that something like a deadline on an offer is the very most basic thing you can do. So, for example, let's say you just put out a proposal to someone. Well, there should be a deadline on that. At the very most basic level, you should say something along the lines of, this proposal is valid for the next 30 days or 90 days or whatever it is. So that's a really simple example of what you can do with deadlines. Another way you can encourage people to act now, of course, is to offer premiums for action. So some kind of added benefit or added value. And you can also think about when you're structuring things, can you legitimately introduce some kind of limited quantity, or, maybe it's an introductory offer, or this is a pilot group of people you're working with. Could even be discounts with great caution. It's better generally to add value than it is to take money off, but discounts could be another one. Just have a think, what are these things that I can add to the offer and tie them to some kind of deadline or some kind of scarcity, because these things can be really powerful. And I hope it goes without saying, you need these to be legitimate as well. So, if you're going to make an offer and someone gets something when they act by a particular deadline, ain't no good if they come back later. You've just got to say, well, sorry, it wouldn't be fair to everyone else. And but you can still get the basic package, but we can't give you the extra stuff. So
Right.
I think that's important.
So that's one level of false scarcity, meaning that you don't honor your own deadline. The other one, which is really amateur hour, is, there's only 17 copies of this PDF left.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually electrons.
So there are infinite copies.
Unlimited, exactly.
Yeah.
Unlimited copies of this PDF. But I think another thing that I've seen, and I'm curious about your take on this, certainly we have time-bound deadlines. We have bonuses like extra time with you, extra time with, in some sort of extended program. The other one is quantity. So for example, for the first 5 people who register during this webinar, you're going to get this bonus. So that's actually a double urgency, isn't it? Because it's first 5 during this time frame, during this webinar, during this promotion, during this whatever. Does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you've described there is really good, because I always think about this in terms of how you would design it up front, and just putting in that thought up front so that you make it really compelling and you give people a good reason to act now. And it could be that with your offer, you're going to provide the first 5 people with some kind of special consultation with you. And then, of course, there's a really good rationale for that. People can understand why that would be limited in terms of quantity, because, you've only got so many hours in the day. So for sure, yeah, those kinds of things can work really, really well, just to get people off the fence and making a decision.
Love it.
So we've had the O and the U in Outpitch. So the next element is the T, of course, transformation. You probably experienced this as well, David, but with working with speakers and people who are experts in their field, obviously they're, for the most part, really enthusiastic about the work that they do. And that is a fantastic thing. But just beware, because many of your potential clients will not be as enthusiastic about the subject matter as you. And if they're buying from you, it's not because they love your topic necessarily, but it's a means to an end for them. So they want to get from point A, where they are right now, where they're in some kind of pain, some kind of dissatisfaction, to point B, where they're not in that pain or dissatisfaction anymore. And so one of the things that we want to think really hard about is, what is that point A to point B transformation that your offer is going to give a buyer? So what specifically will they have, do, or feel as a result of buying and implementing whatever it is you're selling? And the more concrete and tangible you can make this, the better. So, for example, if you're an email marketing expert, I will talk to people quite often who might be in that situation, and they will have an idea that they're going to create a training product, perhaps an online training product, and they're just going to cram in everything they know about email marketing. And the trouble is, that is not a transformation most people in the market really want. Most people do not want to become the A to Z expert on email marketing. I mean, maybe a handful of them do, but most of the people in the market, I would suggest, are much more interested in a transformation such as, well, how can I get 1,000 new leads into my database? Or how can I double my open rates so that I make twice the sales with the same amount of work? And so these actually are valuable transformations, and they may be buried in your training product or your service offering. And what I'm encouraging people to do is just think quite hard about that and bring these things to the fore. Is it that we give people more leads, or is it that we help them double their open rates? Because, as I say, there probably is less market for you just making someone an expert in email marketing. Does that make some sense?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, figuring out that valuable transformation. And this won't be easy necessarily, but it's really where you earn your corn. So plan on having some thinking time and sitting down and really, thinking hard on that and burning some brain cells, but it is very much worth it. So that was the T. So moving on in the Outpitch formula. So we've looked at options, urgency, we looked at the transformation, and the P we've touched on a bit is premiums. So premiums are extras that your buyer gets for responding to your promotion, or maybe it's for responding by a certain time.
We might otherwise also call these bonuses.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Premiums, bonuses, it's the same thing, really. So I think most people hopefully understand the concept. There is one note of caution I will sound, however, people will tend to think that, oh, well, premiums really all, I just find anything that I've got and I add that to the package and it makes for a better package. And that is not the case. And in actual fact, you may find that if you just add stuff willy-nilly without giving it the proper thought, you can actually depress response. So why might that happen? Well, it might happen because you're kind of giving people so much it dilutes your message and they miss the point of the thing that they were buying. Also, you might introduce new objections that your prospect had never even thought of into the process. So, you add some extra element and they start thinking, well, gosh, this is actually starting to sound like a lot more work than I'd bargained for. Or does that mean that to do X, I'm going to need Y? Maybe I'll think again about this. So what I would encourage you to do is, again, this is an area for you to think strategically. And one of the ways that you can do this is you can figure out, well, some of the objections that a potential buyer might have to my offer are X, Y, and Z. So could we come up with another resource that makes them say, oh, well, it's okay. I don't need to worry about X because David has created this helpful resource for me, or he's going to include this piece of software or this spreadsheet that's going to solve that problem. So if you start to think about your premiums in that way, in the sense of it not just being more stuff, but actually you're using them strategically to help people get over some of the obstacles that they perceive in the way, that is the best use, I would suggest, of premiums.
That's profound. People need to actually, I think, even before we complete the model here, Rob, I know that folks are going to want to re-listen to this episode at least one or two more times. What a great episode. Wowza. Tell you what, if you want to ramp up your revenue as an expert who speaks professionally, you should really check out our free online training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. But I want to pick up on what you just said about the bonuses, because this is so profound. You're recommending that the bonuses also serve as objection busters. Every reason they might hesitate, every reason they might scratch their heads and go, well, I don't know if I have this, the bonus alleviates that problem or resolves that doubt or fear.
Exactly, yeah. And so to give you a concrete example of this, David, so something we've done with other clients is, obviously the time objection's a pretty universal one for most things. I love the sound of it, but how long is it going to take me to implement this or give my attention to or whatever? And so one of the things that we've done with one or two clients is we actually broke down the entire process and we split it down into 30-minute chunks. And so we said, okay, here is this checklist. And because we've broken it down for you into 30-minute chunks, it means that any time you have a bit of downtime, you're waiting for the kids at swimming or whatever it is, you can actually be making concrete progress on this thing. So that's just an example of, is it thinking laterally? I don't know. That it sounds good, so I'm going to say it. But just doing the thought up front and just thinking, oh, well, actually, the time thing is going to be a problem. So what could we give them that's going to help them with that?
Yeah, really, really smart. Nice work on the premiums/bonuses.
I suppose it would be the Outpitch Formula, wouldn't it? If you can see why I didn't use bonuses, but
I like the British version better.
Yeah.
Better.
Yeah.
That's great.
Good stuff. So the next one, the I is investment. So what's the monetary investment? And more importantly, how will you justify that for people? So how can you tie it to ROI is an obvious one, I hope. But another one is, can you think about what's the cost of inaction for people? What are the costs if they don't change the problem? And these can be economic costs. They could be opportunity costs. They could be emotional, spiritual costs, perhaps. So I would really encourage you just to do that detailed thinking around the investment. And if you're saying to yourself, oh, yeah, but, there's no way I can possibly know what this is worth to a client. Well, I would challenge you on that a bit, because I think if you do the work, you probably can figure these things out, or you can at least estimate them. And depending on who you're selling to, particularly if you're selling into a larger organization, you may be talking to an individual, but then they've got to go and justify it to their boss or to other people. And so they might emotionally buy into whatever it is you're selling, but they probably will still need that logical justification. And so doing your homework here and coming up with that justification for the investment, I think, is a really important thing to consider.
People are very hesitant to spend/invest money if they don't see how it's going to come back to them many times over. And so people say, oh, it's ordinarily $7,500 and today you're getting it for $1,500. No one cares about that $6,000 savings. I mean, they do a little bit, but it's like, how am I going to get my $1,500 back? Or if it's $7,500 as opposed to $15,000, no one cares about, oh, it's 50% off. How am I going to get my $7,500 back in, like you said, time, money, effort, energy, ego, right? How will I be $7,500 times 2, 3, 5, 10? How will I be better off personally, professionally, financially? What's going to make the journey worth the trip? And I think, again, like you said, have a good think about that. There may be 2 or 3 different kinds of reasons that people will want to have that return and have that satisfaction, ego satisfaction, personal, everyone wants to be taller, thinner, sexier, richer, be the cool kid on the block in their neighborhood, whatever that means. CEOs want to have better golf clubs than other CEOs that they play with. You name it. That's an ego, by the way. And they buy things for those reasons. So I think doing that analysis that you're saying is critically important.
I completely agree with you. And another thing just to think about on this is comparisons. So comparing your price or your investment with other actions that they might take or other solutions that they might use, that can be a really good way of helping people understand the value they're getting by going with you as opposed to anything else that they might do. Some thought there can really pay off in a big way.
For sure.
So getting into the home stretch. So the T in Outpitch, or the second T, I should say, is the terms. So payment terms. So what are your payment terms? Is it a one-off payment? Is it some kind of payment plan? Is there some kind of trial offer? Is it some kind of performance deal, or are there performance elements? And getting creative with your terms can be a way to appeal to more people and get people on board more quickly. So that is one to think about. And often when I work with people, I find it's quite a long way down the list in terms of an area people think about very much. So payment terms.
And I'm not sure what C in HR, but would one of the term qualifications be a guarantee?
Well, you've provided a great bridge into C, actually, David, because C is what I call commitment. And that may touch on a guarantee. So really what we're asking with the C, the commitment, is what bold commitment can you make to your client that's going to reverse the risk for them and make it easier for them to come on board with you. And there are different ways you can look at this. So this might be based on a hard result, so something that you can measure, so it could be that you work with a client and you say, we're going to help you generate X revenue. Or it could be based on some kind of emotion. That's the other way of doing it. So by the end of this process, you're going to feel a certain way. And then, of course, you're leaving it up to the client to decide whether they feel that way or not. And there are lots of ways to cut this and figure out what's the commitment that you're going to make to the client. So it could be some kind of unconditional guarantee. And so what that means is, you say, come along to the training day, and if you've not had value, we'll give you your money back at any time in the next 30 days. So that would be unconditional. A conditional guarantee would be come along to the training day, go away, do the assignments. And then if you come back 60 days later and you show us the work you've done, and you haven't got X result, then we will refund you or we'll make good in some way. So that would be the conditional guarantee. So there are strings attached. People have got to do something in order to get it. The other thing I would say about guarantees, I think when people hear the word guarantee, they assume, that means I have to give all the money back. And, that can be pretty scary if you've put a lot of work into a consulting arrangement, of course. And actually, that doesn't have to be the only way of providing a guarantee. So, for example, if you take the client I mentioned that we work with from the seminar, I remembered as I was making notes for this episode, the commitment that we made was that we would improve their website conversion rate by a certain percentage by the end of 12 months. And the commitment was if we don't do that, we will work with you until we do. So it wasn't like, we're going to get to the end of 12 months, do all this work, and then we're going to give you everything back, because that would be crazy and it wouldn't reflect the value that we'd actually put in. But it was, if we don't get to this benchmark, we'll keep working with you at no cost until we do. And in the end, it wasn't necessary, but it gave them peace of mind. And this is one of the things with the commitments that you make. They will often give clients a lot of confidence in working with you. And so I think people can be a bit nervous about making these commitments, but generally I think you'll find you win by making these commitments and showing that you're going to do what it takes to get a good result for the client. So final one is the H, and this is a bit of a cheat here, David, because the H is how come? How come? So we've gone through 7 elements up until this final element. And if you've used all those other elements, so you've brought in all these other things, by this point, you should have a really stonking offer. What you've got should be pretty strong. And the one drawback with that is people may see it and say to themselves, wait a minute, this is almost too good. What's going on here? Why is he or she offering this? So you need to give a reason why. So why are you making this offer? So this is how come. How come you're offering this? What is a convincing rationale for making the offer and for making it now? So I'm not suggesting that you make this up. Usually what we find is it's there, but we just don't think we need to share it. But we do need to share it. So people want to know our motivations. So could it be you're making a great offer to a particular client because you've always wanted to work with them? Or could it be it's because they would be really good on your CV or your client list? If that's the case, you can let them know. That's all right. It's okay to do that. Could it be that you're making an offer because you're on a new client drive and you've decided you really want to get 6 clients by the end of the month? These are good reasons. These are good justifications. So don't miss that element out, because if you don't include that justification, prospects will be wondering, why does this sound so good? Is it too good to be true? So that's the final one. How come?
Wow. I'm thinking back, because I do an awful lot of webinars, and we have our programs and we have our mentoring and we have our courses. And I'm thinking back, like, did I hit all of these with all of my offers? And the answer is no, I don't think I did. But I will tell you, just looking in retrospect, even as a fairly advanced marketer, I can tell you that when I did hit most or all of them, my results were dramatically different than when I left out even 1 or 2. Because all of these, like every one of these, have a stacking effect, right? Mm-hmm. So now we have the O, the U, the T, the transformation. We've got the premiums. We've got all of these different things. You leave 1 or 2 of those things out, and you're not 10 or 20% less effective. You're 50% less effective, or you're 80% less effective. So it's almost like you're building that Jenga puzzle where, you pull out one little piece of wood and then the whole house starts to tumble down. So all of these have a multiplier effect on each other, and you really can't afford to even miss one. Now, I know that you have a resource that makes sure that we don't blow it and that we don't miss this with any offer, every offer that we make from this point forward. Tell us about what that is and how folks can get their hands on it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, cheers, David. So if you pop along to robtyson.net/outpitch, so the Outpitch formula that we've just been talking about, robtyson.net/outpitch, you can get a free worksheet there. And there's a video series as well going a bit deeper on this. And basically you can use the worksheet, watch the videos. They're quite short videos, but it will just recap on all this, and it will help you to create much stronger offers. So anytime you're putting together an offer, you can break the sheet out and just use it as a nice reminder and really punch up that offer, make it much stronger. And I like what you said there, David. When you have all the elements and they're all strong or getting stronger, that is when the magic happens, and we're starting to get a really nice offer for people. So simple to do, really. A lot of it is just thinking and spending the time.
Absolutely. So again, we're going to link all of this up on the show notes right under this episode. When you go to thespeakingshow.com, under this episode, we're going to have Rob on social media. We're going to have the link to get your Outpitch formula at robtyson.net/outpitch. And make sure to download, subscribe, do all kinds of fun stuff. But under this episode, make sure to grab all of Rob's links, including robtyson.net/outpitch. Let me ask you one final question, Rob. If folks were to take one macro level idea or one central idea from our conversation today about making really compelling, really effective offers for things that can be bought and don't necessarily need to be sold so hard the way they may have been doing it previously, what do you hope that one central concept is?
I think the central concept, David, is that offer creation is a skill, and it is a skill that most people never knew they needed to have. But it is one of the biggest bang for your buck skills I think there is out there. As I said before, I reckon, most people who've not looked at this are probably a 1 or a 2 out of 10. And if you even got to 5 out of 10 proficiency, if you just worked on this a bit, the results would be fast and they would be profound.
Really, really great advice. Rob Tyson, thank you so much. I appreciate you, my friend. Brilliant, brilliant insights today.
Really enjoyed it, David. Thank you.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.